Welcome to Bring Out Your Badass Self, a movement to break your negative thoughts and habits and instead focus on building each other up and encouraging fearless authenticity.
Each week, we will get vulnerable and share experiences alongside our guests and audience. Come rediscover your inner badass self.
Good morning, badass.
Good morning. How are you doing this morning? I heard that you got lots of sleep.
I did. I just woke up. But
Kate showed up 3 minutes prior to us going live. I'm like, are you coming?
Oh, yeah, it was, I have insomnia. I think I've mentioned that before. And when there's changes, that makes it even harder to sleep. So Jen and the kids are gone, and I got some really good sleep last night finally. And when I woke up, usually I don't fall back asleep very well after my alarm goes off. But apparently I did.
Well, apparently you needed that extra sleep this morning.
Exactly. And I was so glad. Like I had so much appreciation this morning when I woke up and it was like 8:09. I was like, oh my God, thank God. Like, cause I could have slept till 10 probably, or, who knows?
You know me, I just would have rolled with the punches and done what I needed to do. But I'm glad you are here because it makes my job easier.
Yes, without a doubt. And it's just like eerie, right? Like, what is going on?
I know. And so when the family is away, you sleep really well, is what it sounds like. Yes and no? Like you have a hard time going to sleep, but once you get to sleep, then...
I think last night was just an anomaly, which was lovely. But I think because, I haven't been sleeping well because they've been gone, and so I think last night my body just crashed.
Yeah. It's funny, Jay, when I travel, he has a hard time sleeping the first night because he wants that cuddle time, and then he rolls over and he's like, all right, now I'm good. But when I'm gone, I also sometimes snore, so that sometimes keeps him awake. Most of the time he falls asleep before me, so that helps. But
yeah,
he eventually ends up having really good sleep the next day. So he's like, I know I miss you, but I also sleep really well when you're not here.
Jenna is the same exact way. It's what led us to eventually get the split beds, because she was like, with you not moving, my world is a totally different world, So.
Well, it's funny because we have a king bed, but they are twin beds. So it's basically he chose a twin bed, I chose a twin bed, and we actually meshed them together. And in his needed to be up a little bit, so we put some plywood underneath it, so then it's the same height. And that's ultimately a lot of times what people do with king beds is they're just two twin beds. But what that does, it allows when he moves, I don't feel it. When I move, he doesn't feel it.
Yeah. That's what we did. And then we realized we had to actually separate ours. So we're totally like Lucy and Desi, because we started it and it was like, she's like, I can still feel you moving, because I move, I've fallen off my bed. I move so much. Oh, wow. So we literally are like Lucy and Desi.
Oh my gosh. Well, as you guys are coming in today, let us know that you are here. I do know that Bruce is joining us. He said morning badasses. And I do see that we have some other individuals on as well. So if you are one of those lurkers, say hello to us. Yes. Let us know that you are here. And so, Kate, I know you didn't get to speak with Daniel beforehand as we were chatting because he had to go to the restroom right beforehand. So you haven't even chatted with him whatsoever.
I don't even know what he looks like. So here's the funny thing. As our music was playing, I was like, this is the first time I'm interviewing someone who I've never even seen before. I have no idea what this guy looks like. I've read his bio, but I have not met him.
Oh gosh. Well, this will be fun. And so you'll be surprised as he comes on. And
Yep.
so we also have Stephanie. She said, "Hey, lovely ladies." So
Good
great to see you,
morning.
Stephanie. And so as people are continuing to come in, please let us know you're here. If this is the first time, please include a heart. We typically say a white heart, but not all social media has a white heart. So just include a heart so we know that you are new here. And so also just so you guys know, if for whatever reason it sometimes comes in that we can't see your name, it'll say like LinkedIn user or things like that. So you do have to give it permission so we can see you. And then also I've been finding still some situations where you guys are commenting, but they're not coming up through StreamYard.
Oh,
And
yeah.
so just know that we're not ignoring you, not ignoring your comments. We see them after the fact. What we have sort of figured out is that unfortunately, those Android phones, sometimes they don't work. That's what we sort of narrowed it down to. So it's not connecting somehow to StreamYard. And so just know that we're not ignoring you and we will say hello after the fact. And so Kim's joining us, and she gives her normal good morning to my favorite, amazingly and beautiful badass. So she added an LY in today's message. So, and J Rose coming in too. She said, "Good morning, badass ladies. Happy Friday."
Good morning. Oh, can I say a J-Ro funny thing quick?
Yeah.
She sent us audio messages and she said, Sarah didn't respond. And I said, Sarah probably didn't listen to it yet.
Listen to it. I hate the audio.
I said, Sarah hates the audio. I said, don't do it again.
If you want me to listen, I'm like, I'm not in a situation where I can listen to this. And so I'm like, and then I forget about it. And so I'm like, I get it. And I'm like, okay, I see that, but I can't play it right now. Like, that's why I like text messages because I'm a multitasker. I'm like, oh, okay. And then I go back to whatever it is I'm doing. But I see an audio and I'm like, well, I can't do anything about that. And then I completely forget about it.
I figured as much. She said no to that.
I know Tasha used to do that to me. I'm like, oh, here's these fucking audio things again.
I know. That's what I told her. I said, I only know this is because Tasha is a fan of using those. And it's Oscar uses them. My friend Rachel uses them. There's just some people who really like them.
I know. And I get it because they're like, oh, I just want to talk to you like you're on a phone. And it's more efficient instead of me trying to type it. Like, I get it. Sometimes you got to just say stuff, but I'm just like, okay, well, just say, hey, let's find time to chat. Because I'm like, I just look at them and I'm like, I'm constantly like doing something or I'm in a situation where I feel like I'm never in a situation where I can listen to it. I don't know what it is. I'm like, what are you what do you want to tell me? Just tell me.
Right. And then you forget. I totally get that because it's not, it's not at the top of your thing.
Until you told me, I forgot all about it. I was like, oh yeah, she did say something.
Yep.
That's so funny. And so, and Kim said autocorrect on the Lee. So I just had too much to say and thought it was easier. Yep, exactly. So that's funny. So, all right. Well, with that, I want to bring Daniel Lamb onto the stage. So let's do that and get us set up.
Hi.
That's
so
what
nice to meet you.
It's a pleasure.
So Daniel and I have known each other 7 years.
Yeah.
About 6, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Riley, my daughter, I was introduced to Mr. Lamb through a mutual friend that was involved with Mr. Lamb. And we'll get into that, but I was introduced through my daughter. And then I'll also tell some stories of me seeing him prior to me getting to know him as well. So maybe Daniel, if you can, and I want to call you Mr. Lamb, and I'll explain why I want to call him Mr. Lamb here in a minute. But if you could tell the audience a little bit more about you currently, what it is that you're doing today.
Yeah, absolutely. I teach karate. It's kind of a thing. I've done it for the last 27 years, and I got into it just because I wanted to quit getting bullied at high school level, and then it turned into a career and a lifestyle and who I was.
Yeah. And do you want to tell the audience what you're also doing now?
Yeah, so I'm actually transitioning out of martial arts and I'm moving into a couple of different industries. Um, through the martial arts, I got a little bit of confidence about me, and I'm moving into some sales positions, but I'm moving into the firearms industry, and then also cabinets of all things, two very different things.
And it's painting on the firearms, right?
Say it again.
And it's painting on the firearms
Yeah,
specifically.
yeah. So it's a process called Cerakote. It basically paint job, right? But it's special in the fact that it's very thin, so it won't make things malfunction. Cerakote's used on a lot of different things. Anything metal you can spray it on. It's great for, as I do a commercial now, chemical resistant, scratch resistant. They use it on aerospace materials, uh, uh, planes, engines, car parts. It's very heat resistant too, so it does a lot of things.
Yeah. So how I was introduced to Daniel, or the first time I remember seeing him, I actually have a video of him. I'm not going to play it today. I really should. I should have teed that up, but I have a video of him, and he went to the school in his karate outfit. And when they would do the field day events or the running around the track event, he was the person that would come in and work out get them set up to be able to go run. So he would do exercises with them. And
Mhm.
so I have certain video of him like going up on one hand with feet, you know, both feet above. He would do these things and like have them mimic them. And then he would do these things that you know, most of the kids are like, I can't do that. But he was just
Oh my
so
gosh.
fun, so dynamic, and so engaging, and the kids just loved him. And I was like, who is this guy? Like, I'm videoing because I'm just like, this is amazing. And then we had friends that introduced us, and I ended up getting Riley into karate. So she was maybe 6, I
Yeah.
think, about that.
Yeah, between 5 and 6, because the other Riley was there.
Yes, which she's going to her birthday party tonight. So
Oh yeah. So this other Riley. Oh my gosh.
yeah, exactly. And so Riley did karate, and the main thing that I remember when Riley first went in is they will ask questions like, "Are you trying to help them with confidence? Are you trying to help them, you know, with this or that?" And I was like, confidence isn't the issue."
Nope.
No.
And I was like, you know, like the thing that I think Riley needs a little bit more of is discipline. And so the first time, this is, I don't know if you remember this, but the first time he was like, say yes, yes, sir. And she was like, nah. And he just looked back and he was like, we'll work on that. And I just thought it was hilarious because and the one thing that I really saw as things progressed was just his patience and things like that. So
Mm.
so I want to dive into, we'll get into more of that, but I think setting the storyline of sort of where you were at growing up really allows the things that you ended up doing later on in life, sort of the impact that life had on you really impacted sort of at how you have continued to evolve. So maybe if you can talk a little bit about your upbringing and the things that you dealt with related to family. That I know there's a lot there.
Yeah, that's a Pandora's box altogether.
Oh.
Um, so my uh, my parents are from two different places. My mom's full Korean, and my dad is Scottish Irish American.
Okay.
And you know, army guy stationed in Korea, meets mom there, fall in love, the soldier boy story, if you will. And so growing up as a mixed ethnicity, like there wasn't a lot of Asians just around in the 80s populated in our area.
Right.
Yeah, I didn't live in San Francisco. Um, it was a small kind of rural area in southern Arizona, where I grew up. So there was a mix of people there, but I was, at our school of a couple hundred, there was maybe 5 Asians, and four of them were me and my 3 sisters. So that made for some trying times dealing with just a little bit of racism there, not a lot. Just again, because there was this a blend of ethnicities and racial backgrounds there. But we also grew up kind of poor, and there was a lot of strife in between my parents. Um, you don't learn about these stories until your mom's like, "Oh, you're old enough to hear this story,"
Mm.
like at age 44. I'm like, "Oh, mom, you could have told me this, when I was 15. It would have helped me deal with some things or whatever." Um,
Yeah.
but there was some abuse. There's sexual abuse towards the kids by my dad, and so that caused our family to split. Uh, and he went to jail, and my mom, being she basically had a green card and that much English, uh, had to figure out life quick, and she did. Um, we got pulled away to foster care, and
Mhm.
my 3 sisters ended up in the same foster care. I was still with my mom. They hadn't quite got me yet.
Mhm.
Um, and I don't know what's going on, so I don't, but I do have memories from that time. Funny story, real quick. It was, I don't know, it was before Christmas because the Christmas tree was out, and there's 100 presents under this Christmas tree, and
Mm.
only me there.
Ah.
So my mom's asleep. I get up early, and I'm just like, I'm going to open the Christmas presents today. And I start opening every single one of them, including the ones for my sisters who weren't living there at the time. They were in foster care. And I distinctly remember opening up this Minnie Mouse thing, and it was Minnie Mouse like play makeup for 7-year-old girls. And I looked at it, and I was like, nope, threw it behind the couch. So anything that wasn't boy related got thrown behind the couch because that was for my sisters.
How old were you?
I wasn't quite 4 yet. I was,
Right.
or
But
maybe I
you
was.
remember it.
No, I was 4. I was 4. Because all that transpired within like a year's time of me getting pulled to foster care and going into kindergarten. So I was 4 years old just before I turned 5. And I remember the date because like I got a tricycle. I opened up, I found a tricycle. I was on my tricycle. This is before my 5th birthday. I was on my tricycle, and I was riding my bike back from the park because where we lived on base at the time. There was a central little park that we'd go to as kids, and then I'd ride my tricycle back to the house in the little cul-de-sac we're at. And I saw this brown car pull up. Now, if you watch a lot of 80s cop movies, Beverly Hills Cop, you would go, oh, that's a cop car or that's a government car, right?
Right.
And so, it's a Crown Victoria Limited, and it's brown and it's boxy. And I saw a guy wearing army clothes get out. I was like, oh, that's dad. And then I saw 2 guys in suits get out. I was like, who are they? And I maybe 20 yards away. I
Mhm.
stopped just because I was like, what's going on? And then
Mhm.
they go to the door, they knock on the door. My mom comes out, and she hits her knees. It still chokes me up. It's getting me right now. Give me a second.
Mhm.
She hits her knees and just starts bawling out of control. You ever hear your mom scream, you will never forget those moments. And oh, still getting me. Give me a second. um,
You're good. No worries.
um, and so she starts crying, and my dad sees me. He comes over. He picks me up off the trike, and I just don't know what's going on. They stick me in this car, and they drive me to this it's kind of like a mixed bag of like kids and teenagers, almost like the only way I could describe it was like a halfway home, because there's like multiple adults that were there too, and there was probably about 10 of us kids there. And we stopped at Burger King to get food, and we got to the house, and they kind of introduced me, and I just remember living there for a little while. You know, there's this little kid, you know, we used to take baths together with our socks on, like those random things that you remember as a kid. And then we would go see my mom at the, I guess the equivalent to like DFAX or the DA's office. I recall them saying that we're going to the DA's office to go see your mom. And so like I got to see mom that way. And I was like, oh, cool. I get to see mom. I get to see my sisters. And I'm just kind of taking everything in. I was like, oh, this is just kind of where I live now. So like, I don't have a sense of really anything at that point. And then,
Right.
and then they found this family that my three sisters were accepted into, a foster family. And they're like, we'll take the brother too. So they were able to reunite me with my sisters. And we lived with them for almost a year. They've since passed away, but before they passed away, we kept up with them through Facebook after we found them. Aunt Bernie and Uncle Joe, they were very widely known in the state of Arizona because they
Okay.
fostered literally hundreds, if not thousands, of children.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's getting me again.
Hmm.
And so yeah, so I'm like, you know, before age 5, there's all this crap going on.
Yeah.
And my mom remarries. She remarries this psychopath. If you looked up on Facebook and you saw his eyes, you'd be like, oh yeah, that's a psychopath. Like I could just look at his face.
Hmm.
And she did it because she knew if she got married, she can get her kids back. She's like that, and she told us that's like that's the only reason I married him. And he turned out to be physically abusive towards everybody, my sisters, me, my mom, especially my mom. And then after about 2 years of that, and then getting put in the hospital, like she was hospitalized for like a couple of weeks. And so we were living with neighbors for a few weeks. And we packed up, you know, what we could, because he burnt a lot of our pictures that we had as kids, you know, even before, you know, the photo albums that my mom took with us. He burned all that stuff, and he destroyed a lot of that kind of thing. Very just a crazy individual. So we go into hiding basically and go to a battered women's shelter. So if like my school is here, we lived here, the battered women's shelter was way over here on the opposite side of town. And again, it was just like, oh, this is just kind of where we live now, and this is our situation. We adapted to it. And it was weird because, you know, we're living like with 7 other, you know, single mom families.
Right.
But then, you know, they just become family. And he was still looking for us. He didn't know where we were. And so if we saw his beat up red Plymouth, we knew to duck, because he would literally, I don't know what this guy did for a job. I don't even remember what he did, you know, when my mom was married to him. I don't, you know, like, because he got discharged from the army, probably because he was a nut. And then, so we lived in battered women's shelter for, I want to say a year. It was like through second grade. Second grade was battered women's shelter. What's crazy is towards the end of second grade, still remember this conversation. We're at lunch, and I'm sitting next to this girl who I like, and we're friends. And she was like, "Yeah, my mom just started dating this new guy, and his name's Cleve, and I don't know, I don't really like him. He's kind of weird." I was like, "Is he tall and skinny with black hair?" "Yeah." "Does he have weird eyebrows?" "Yes." "Is his last name Mosley?" And she's like, "Yes, how do you know him?" I was like, "That was my stepdad. That's the craziest person ever." Like, it
No.
blew my mind. Like, I
Wow.
was like, "Oh my gosh." Like, we were just telling him all the horrible things. We told her, all the horrible things that like he had done, and I was like, "Good luck." Like, I'm sorry your mom's dating this guy, but he was a maniac.
You're in second grade telling this girl good luck. Holy shit.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah. Um, and so I remember moving out of the uh, the battered women's shelter. Go back a little bit, when she was still married to him, I remember her getting her first job, like real job. So she got hired basically to bag groceries at the local commissary, which is like a Kroger for a military base. And I remember that phone call. I remember her on the phone and like going whoa, and clapped her hands really hard and like screaming, "I got a job!" And then we're all just, "Yeah, mom got a job, cool." And so she did that for several years, just busting her ass. And she's, barely 5 foot tall, barely 100 pounds, and she's pushing these giant carts of groceries for 9, 10 hours a day. And so there are many times where we just lived where, like, when we got out of that situation and moved into our own home, it was a trailer park. We walked from the battered women's shelter to the trailer park to our new house, and we got Burger King again that day, our first meal in the house, and then we lived there through third grade. I remember counting quarters for my mom so she could buy her first car. Like, she saved up, and 400 stacks of quarters, of 4 quarters. It was a $400 car. That was her first car that she bought. Um, and it was this turd green car, like a Gremlin or something. But it was her first car, and it was hers. And it was just cool to like, oh, mom's getting a car, awesome. And then we went through another stepdad, and he lasted maybe a year and a half, 2 years. He became abusive. He was one of those that he's super smart, but didn't know what to do with it. And it's like his parents were super wealthy. Like, we went and visited them in Alabama one Christmas, and they bought us all kinds of like nice gifts, and they lived in this giant, big, expensive house. Um, and he's the guy that can answer all the questions on Jeopardy, but couldn't, you know, figure out what to do short of just being a cook on base, and not in the army anymore. And they decided he'd hit my mom and my sister a couple times, and my mom's like, "I've been there. We're not going to do that anymore." Kicked him out, and then and all this transpired like by age 10. Uh, yeah, and so mom remarried. He he was verbally abusive, lots of yelling. He only hit me twice the whole time, which was nice, not to get slapped around a bunch. Um, Only one of those times was I asking for it, and I was big enough that, yeah, he didn't really hit me. He just kind of threw me into a wall. It was like, if you're gonna man up, then now's your time. It was one of those moments, one of those father son bonding moments, if you will. Um, but he was very verbally abusive, and part of where my self esteem was just like ooh down here, and then you know it, that that is part of like middle school, high school. Didn't have a lot of confidence. Always picked on, always bullied, always try to hide in the crowd, which is hard because I went to high school in Tequila, Georgia. Same thing. 4 people, 5 people at that school were Asian. 4 of them were me and my sisters, and mostly white kids, if you will, and a lot of rednecks, a lot of hillbillies, a lot of generational racism there. And one thing I was able to learn and figure out is how to become friends with people through being a good listener. I learned that having 3 older sisters, because they would talk about all their problems and they would come to me, and so I would just sit there and listen. And I didn't have any advice because I just didn't know anything. Just sit there and listen. Yeah. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, that's bad. Oh, yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. And the whole while too, I'm also the worst little brother of all time. Just everything is blamed on them. All the lies of, something went wrong, and nope, they did it, and mom believes me over them because I'm the youngest. But I learned how to befriend a lot of those same folks and kind of like turn that around for myself. But then, the ultra hard, like bullies, I was like, I started karate because of that. And I gained a lot of confidence, too much confidence. I'm glad I didn't get into any fights in high school because I think I still would have lost. But I had enough confidence, and they knew I wasn't going to stand for getting picked on anymore. They left me alone. They're like, oh, he's not going to be a victim anymore. He might fight back and actually hurt me. We'll leave him alone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Holy shit, Daniel. First of all, thank you for sharing all of that. Obviously I read a lot of it in the bio, but there's so much here. I mean, first of all, it's amazing that you have such distinct memories, and like, so I'm sure that's kind of a blessing and a curse.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, right. But then, everything that your family had to withstand, and your poor mom and the four of you, just wow. And it all shaped who you are, right? I mean, it all became a part of you, even though, it's things that kids and people should not have to withstand.
The thing that was sort of standing out to me is that the memories that you have, I'm sure that as you were growing up, those were things that impacted you in certain ways negatively. However, as you've gotten older and you've learned more, like your perspective is changing because you're now understanding the why in the choices and understanding why it is your mom did things versus the blaming of like, why did you put me in that situation? You're like, oh, you did this because you were looking at how not to be sent back, and yes, the consequences of that were negative. The other consequences could have been even more negative. You just don't know, and she was just making the best choice that she could make in the moment.
Yeah.
And so what I love is the reflection and her telling you and giving you the more perspective, because in life a lot of times we sit there and play the blame game, like you did this, all of these things, not knowing sometimes the why. And sometimes it doesn't excuse sometimes the choices sometimes people make, but it also helps you to understand their psychology of why it is that they made the choices that they made. I guess my question for you is, you saw patterns. Your mom was going from abusive relationship to abusive relationship to abusive relationship. My hope is that those types of patterns, she figured those things out for herself and not repeating those cycles. And for you, that you didn't become that type of person, because a lot of times that's what you tend to see, is that you were experiencing the abuse, and that's why you start to see abusive people, because that's the only role model. So what I really want to get into is, how did you mentally choose the other path as you start to think about it? Because as you started to get into karate, you really started to, in some ways, you said, go down the path of having anger and those types of things. So I want to talk a little bit about that, and then also the mental shifts that you've had along the way to the things that you've done to be able to help yourself.
So one of the things that I didn't do, and it's because of my relationship with my mom, we were very close. In a lot of Asian communities, especially in like Chinese communities, being a son is highly revered.
Yeah.
Being a daughter is not so much, which is terrible. She had 3 daughters and 1 son, and I'm the youngest, so that just stacked the odds in my favor, and not in a good way, in a toxic way, towards my sisters. So like for me, I never really blamed mom for any of those things.
Mm,
Um, and like empathy is something that is definitely like that's one of my God's gifts to me.
mhm,
Is I have a high level of empathy, um, as I brag about it. um, so I never blamed mom, and and my thing was just like we're moving towards a better day, and that was a
mm,
promise that I heard from God when I was probably like 5 or 6.
mm.
Things are gonna get better. Trust me. And
Aw.
that's just what I did. And I wasn't, I wasn't super religious as a child. We weren't in church. I wasn't reading Bibles or scripture or any of that. Um, so I'm kind of trailing off here. Um, but like, and it trauma doesn't come out all at once,
Yeah.
and trauma is like an onion, layers, layers, and some of the deep traumas don't come out until that layer gets peeled back from whatever experiences, right? So the anger stuff would come out in I say silly things, video games. I'd punch a hole through a wall if I wasn't going to get in trouble. I would kick door frames because I knew the door frame was strong enough to not break when I would lose at video games. And I'd punch the controller, and my friends would freak out a little bit. Like, I've never, because I'm usually the one laughing, getting in trouble for saying jokes in class, talking, laughing, and being a ding dong. And they would see this anger side of me, like, what? I'm kind of scared right now.
Yeah. Just like if
Um,
you could just like flip a switch.
yeah, yeah. And and then when I started working with kids, you know, that's when I started to see some of like my stepdad in me come out. When I would get angry and frustrated at them, I would be like, "You listen here," like it was very, and I was telling Sarah earlier, while you were sleeping, uh, I'm kidding. I was 19 years old and I had power over people. And when you give a 19-year-old power over people, sometimes it goes right here to the ego, and it did.
Yeah.
And I was like Sergeant Slaughter, like stand still. And on the flip side, when I was having fun, like I'm, goofball Mr. Lamb. And so I had a couple hard tarts with the other head instructors and the owners. They're like, hey, like it was a reference to Star Wars. Like the tighter you squeeze your grip, the more they slip out of your hold, right? Like,
Mm.
and those were his words. Like like Darth or Princess Leia said that Darth Vader, the tighter you squeeze on the galaxy, the more the planets will slip out of your grip, kind of thing.
Mm,
And so I had to learn how to control, like I had to use the empathy that I had when I'm in regular situations or situations where people are sad and having a difficult time, and I had to use that in these situations with myself and with the kids. I was like, oh, and even still, I didn't even learn about thinking about like how a child's brain works and like processes things until way later. I just had to listen and go, okay, kid's not getting it. uh, that's not their fault. I'm not communicating well, which again, it where my patience was more like kind of waiting and figuring out a way of how to do it, and then later learning why they
Mm.
act the way they act is rarely out of straight defiance. It's just like their communication style. So like
Mhm.
if their communication style is XYZ, and you give them a certain stimulus, they're going to respond with that communication style. Like if their way of saying I don't know how to do something is to punch a wall, that's what they're going to do. Not because
Yeah.
they hate you or think you're a jerk. That's just how they learned how to communicate. So
mm,
like, and that was like, you know, multiple like hundreds of podcasts and reading books and journals and things like that to really understand also like my position. Like yeah, there's so many years where I just kind of took for granted the idea of being someone's karate teacher, and not realizing the massive impact it can have
Yeah.
negatively and positively. Because mine was positive. Like my karate coach is the man. He's one of my best friends, and like we still talk on the regular. Um, it, yeah. So
The thing that I saw as I watched Mr. Lamb speak with kids is the empathy that he talked about, the things that he would do with kids when they were struggling with things.
Mhm.
Uh, and that I did notice that sometimes the thing that I'm good at is the observing and seeing sometimes the psychology of people that is sort of hidden, that people don't think anybody knows about them. But I would see these kids that I could tell that some of them didn't have necessarily father figures that showed them empathy, that showed them that there was another way of being able to handle your feelings. And you would do things like helping people to process these kids to be able to process their feelings whenever they were upset or, scared or didn't have confidence, all of those different types of things. Just the way that you went about helping them to understand that they can have confidence, and just the way that you went about building them up was just a remarkable thing to watch. And I don't know if you really realize the impact that you have had on kids, like the real impact. It was beyond teaching them karate. It
Mhm.
was teaching them about life, and showing them that they can do things that they thought that maybe they couldn't do. It was amazing just for me to be able to watch someone that was taking their skills and elevating it to a completely different level beyond just instructing kids how to do karate. It was really teaching them about so much more important things that they really needed to know about life.
One of the as I got into the martial arts, the driving purpose was like, um, and we talked about it earlier. Is I didn't have, my father figure was not positive, really at all, and I wanted them to have that positive reinforcement, that positive figure. So even through my bumbling and learning how to teach, the core was there,
Mhm.
and me learning that I was good at something, because my whole life, I wasn't great at school, but I was good. But like, I also was lazy and probably ADHD. And so I just didn't try all the time. Um, and just being told that when you hear the words, you're worthless,
Mhm.
like over and over, or you're a piece of shit, and these are things that came out of, my current stepdad. Bless his heart, he's a much better man now. He has softened up over the years. But man, those first 15 to 20 were, man. And so like learning that I was good at something, and then because when I got into karate, it was something I had wanted to do since I was like 5 years old. I used to watch this ninja show on TV on the USA Network. That tells you how old I am. And then kung fu theater on Saturday mornings. Like, I wanted to do martial arts, and then you get the stereotype of like, oh, you're Asian, you know karate. And at one point, I just started lying. Yeah, I know karate. And I got in a fight and I got beat up. They're like, "Oh, your karate sucks." I was like, "Yeah, well, I lied about that." But it let me. It like I started really excelling, and so like I'm one of those where like if I get into something I really like, I get very like obsessive about it, and like that's all I'll do. So
Yeah.
all my friends went to the wayside. I didn't hang out with them. I went to karate 5 days a week. I begged my mom to take me. My sister's now husband, boyfriend at the time, I begged him to take me home after class. I was like, "Hey, can you pick me up and take me home?" Because my mom's like, I don't want to stay and watch your class for 45 minutes, because she worked a long day, and stress
And
and
it was every
everything.
day. You were going every day.
Literally 5 days a week I was at dojo. That
Yeah.
didn't that didn't stop. I did like the only time I didn't go 5 days was if I was sick. And I kept getting better, and I kept getting better, and I could see the progress, and it's just like I'm living a real-time video game and I am leveling up, and this is the most badass thing I've ever done. And I'm hitting adults across the mat with kicks. They're holding bags and stuff, but I'm knocking them 7, 8 feet away from me. And I'm like, oh, I'm strong too. I've been a weakling my whole life. That's
Holy
what I
shit,
thought.
yeah.
That's what I believed. And it's like, oh. And so as I became a teacher and as I'm being coached by my coaches on how to coach and how to mentor and how to teach, and it's just like, I can take this, 32-pound little skinny kid who's got zero confidence and get him to believe in himself. And it's easy to work with the athletes who are athletes.
Right.
It's hard to take kids who already have the limiting self-beliefs about themselves because of XYZ condition, to break through that and then progress. And then even when they see that, when they hit that first big obstacle, they regress back. And it's like getting them to like process through that. And then over the course of multiple victories, it starts steamrolling. And then, okay, take a step back and they start figuring it out themselves. That to me was the greatest and the best. So I loved working with special needs kids, worked with several kids who were Down syndrome. I had this one Down syndrome girl. She made it all the way to advanced brown belt in our system. Our system was not easy. And she
Yeah.
had all the things memorized. Like a typical human being looking at a child with Down syndrome, if she wasn't in a karate out, they would have never guessed that she knew 30 different attacking combinations, 25 different self-defense moves that were very intricate, and we showed her what she was capable of doing, and she took that and ran with it. And I wish I could have got her to black belt, but her family moved to DC because dad was in DEA or something like that. So they moved around a little bit. The youngest one, her brother, he got his black belt. And this kid, if you looked at him, like, 10 pounds soaking wet, he is the pasty, redheaded kid that, like, if you saw in a movie, you're like, oh, he's the one getting picked on all the time. But man, that kid was scrappy as it gets. He never backed down. And once we got him to a point where he could see his strength, as the smallest kid out there, he is chasing the big kids down. He's eating punches and beating ass at the same time. Like,
Wow.
and I call those, like, not having children or being a father myself, or even stepkids, like, those were daddy moments for me. That's that. And I reflect on those is because those, like, remind me again to, like, all right, like when I'm getting frustrated or I'm getting angry about something, like, how would you want to handle this as a father? How would you want to handle this as a dad? And I get these little precious dad, father moments. I'm like, oh, I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life. That's it's as much for me as it is for them, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Wow.
The other thing I really loved is that you embraced kids where they were at. And everyone has different things that they need help with. And with Riley, it wasn't her confidence, but it was her discipline. But you also gave her enough freedom to still, like, okay, you can do the worm after to celebrate after you do this. So, like, still allowing her to be her goofy, fun self while also saying, okay, but during this time, we need to be serious. And she would be serious. Like, you got her to say, yes, sir. Like,
Yeah.
she, all of those types of things. And so, like, with each kid, they each had their little things about them that you would continue to work on bringing out the best in them. And that's what I really loved watching.
So that actually became a game to me at some point. It was, I call it the Rubik's Cube. Every child is a Rubik's Cube. And some kids are like the 2x2. They're simple, they're easy. It's like, oh, this one's easy to figure out. I don't have to do anything. I can go autopilot, and it's those kids that will always just conquer the world. They've been conquering the world since they were kindergarten. They were the king or the queen of the playground, and they had all their minions, whether they were a good or a positive or negative influence. And you only had to fix maybe a couple insecurities here or there, and they're gold, right? They get their black belt in 4 years, and they go on to be like dean's list at some college somewhere, and then like high level, blah blah blah, whatever. It was the other ones that had the baggage like me. And like the business guy would come in and go, hey, he would give me their backstory, or he would be like, hey, this is what their family does, and single mom, or blah blah blah, whatever. And then me, I love asking questions, so I just start to get to know the kids. And as I get to know them, I watch their behaviors, I watch their triggers and mannerisms. I poke and I prod, I tease, and I how do they react to all these things? And I figure out, I call it solving the Rubik's Cube. I was like,
Mhm.
and in the beginning, really tough, like, but as you gather more information, you get more experience, it's like an AI computer getting smarter. It's like, oh, I can solve this problem quickly, or I can identify this quickly. I think I offended a dad the other day because I was talking about, like, I've worked with so many kids on the spectrum, on the autism spectrum, that I can just pick them out in a crowd almost immediately. And I didn't mean that as a brag. It's just like,
Yeah.
when you've worked with, and there's a joke, not a joke, but there's kind of saying, like, if you've met one kid on the spectrum, then you've met one kid on the spectrum, because it's a spectrum. It's very different.
Yeah.
It's very, very wide ranging.
Mm.
But if you spent 20 years with all the different, shades of it, then you can almost pick it out immediately. And so, I'd be teaching, and my guy would forget to tell me that, I've got a kid that's ASD or Asperger's or whatever the names have
Yeah.
changed to. And I'd look at the kids. I could look at their eyes and almost know instinct. I was like, oh, okay, this kid's on the spectrum. Hey, come over here to the end where it's not going to be as loud.
Mm.
And I'd ask them a question or two, and I could hear in their tone of voice and the way they answered, and just you can hear the social difference in their tone of voice versus a child who's not on the spectrum. Like for me, my ear just hears it. It's like perfect pitch. But for kids on the spectrum, which
Yeah.
sounds terrible, but I mean, it just was what it was. And so at that point, I knew exactly what I was going to do in that class, and how I was going to structure it, how I was going to run it. And I would slowly ramp up the noise, because, a sharp, quick bang, and they freak out sometimes, or not, but like more times than not, like you'll get that response, or the tears, or just running off the mat. And I've had all the above. And so again, like, it kind of became a game where it's like, all right, how quickly can I figure out this kid? How quickly can I get to them to where they can see, to where they can become more autonomous? Because the more autonomous kids I have out there that can rely on themselves and not rely on another person, the easier my class gets.
Yeah. Easier life gets.
Huh?
Easier life gets.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm going to pull up some comments. So I don't know if you know this person, but Armed Atlas, they said, love that guy, certified badass. Kim Stamp said, all the kids love Mr. Lamb. And then we have Brenda Lees that's joining us. She just said, hello, or hi, beautiful people. So thank you guys for those comments. Yeah. Did you have something?
Shout out to Armed Atlas. He's the first person that gave me an opportunity to be on a podcast, and that was 2 months ago. And just a fantastic human being, and a fantastic supporter of the Second Amendment stuff. So thank you for I sent him I told him the other day, he's like, dude, send me the link, I want to watch it. I was like, all right, cool. So I sent him the link last night. So thanks
That's
for
awesome.
supporting.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. So Daniel, as you are doing karate, you're an adult, you're doing all of these things. You also had other things that happened to you that ended up taking you then further into your career. Do you want to talk about sort of the love and loss of life?
Yeah. So I got married in 2015 and quickly divorced in 2017, and that was the as an adult, that was the hardest time of my life.
Mhm.
Um, and nothing prepares you for divorce. And luckily for me, I'd say about 2011 on, I was really one. I was in church, and church was helping me through some traumas and stuff from earlier in life, and just being in the church community and being able to serve God's children at Sunday school, basically. And so,
Mhm.
having that stuff. And then also all the self-help and self-care things that reading, listening to, diving into, practicing for myself. I had just started meditation 6 months prior to my now ex-wife leaving me, and so um, she left. She left because she became attracted to another person, and I
Mhm.
wasn't fulfilling her needs at home. And it took me a while to like want to own my part of it. But I'll definitely own that part of it, because relationships are two streets and it's 50-50. And if you both put in more than your percent, then there'll be, I assume there'll be less things to gripe about. But so where I fell short, somebody else picked up the baggage,
Mhm.
not baggage, but picked up the need. And so she was like, I'm leaving you. I'm like, Wait, what? Wait, what?" Like, this is over a phone call. And so that whole thing was just it broke me. And
Mhm.
this is a person I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, and do life together. And I remember just I was about to jump in the shower, and one of my good one of my best friends now, closest friends, a guy named Ken, he called. He's like, "Hey man, just want to get an update. How you doing?" And I was like in the middle of it. I was like, I just broke down crying right there. I was like, "I'm good. How are you?" He's like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, no. I'll tell you, let me finish the shower, and I'll call you later." Um, and I left there, got in the shower, went to Chick-fil-A, and there's a couple cops in front of me. They're getting their food, and I'm just waiting there. And the whole time I'm telling myself, hold it together, hold it together, hold it together. Do not, do not die in front of all these people. Do not burst into tears. You're a grown man. Suck it up. You'll be fine. Cry when you get home. And so I get there and I look at the guy, and he looks up and he goes, "Welcome to Chick-fil-A. How can I help you?" And just, it's like an animal cutscene, tears, slow motion. And and the two cops, I could see their judgmental eyes looking over at me, because they kept their eyes to me like, "What is this guy crying about?" And I called a God moment, because like he put his hand on my shoulder and he said, "Daniel Lamb, I don't know who this guy is. He apparently stalked me." But he goes, "I know we don't know each other, but we have a lot of mutual friends through Facebook, and I know of you, and I know who you are." And he's like, 'cause we knew several people, same church, 12 Stone. And he's like, "Can I pray over you?" I was like, "Yeah, I need all the help right now." And he prayed over me in that moment, and it helped a ton. So um, uh,
Mm.
during all that, I was having to hold it together while teaching class,
Mhm.
and not show that on the inside I was just absolutely falling apart. Um, and About a month into her being gone, I'm looking at I'd just gotten this giant bottle of Tito's vodka from a friend as a gift, and it's sitting up there on the refrigerator. And by no means am I an alcoholic or any of that, but I know my proclivities to wanting to avoid pain, and I'll
Mhm.
do that with, usually it was video games. But like, I'll have a drink, and then if I have a drink, I'll have four. And I was like, "All right, unscrew the top," and I poured out an entire bottle of vodka, going, "This is not going to get me to wherever it is I need to be." and I have to get through this. There's no option. There's no option to lay down and like, because at this point I'm part owner of a business, and so he relies on me. I'm the main coach. They rely on me. I've got to figure my shit out, and I did through multiple friendships that of friends that I would rely on to call. Anime, I watched a ton of Naruto, and that was the classic story of bullied, almost like a coming of age movie, but over 500 episodes of a kid battling adversity, battling trauma, and a lot of the things that happen. This is why I love anime, because it actually teaches you coping mechanisms, and it teaches you how to process things and approach things the right way through fantasy storytelling and killing demon ninjas at the same time. So I dove a lot into that, and into the self-help, trying to deconstruct what's going on up here so I can know how to approach it. And then a lot of it was meditation and prayer, a lot of meditation. The meditation was huge. I was telling Sarah, I hit this epiphany. You'll hear a million things, but it won't stick, but it'll stay up there. And, sometimes you're not ready to hear things until you're ready to hear it. I had a lot of anger towards my ex-wife, and
Mm.
according to like some friends and some therapists and people who've been through it, they're like, "You got over that quick." And I was like, okay," because it was just over a year, maybe 2 years after the divorce that I was like, I texted her. I was like, "Hey, I wanted to say I love you, I care about you, and I hope things go well for you." I was angry. I'm not angry, but I also accepted my responsibility in our divorce. And, you know, I hope your life is awesome. And
Aw.
and it was a real feeling. Like it was true feeling of like, hold on one second. Sorry, I accidentally turned on my IA tractor and I saw the camera move. I was like, okay, quit. But I had in an episode of Naruto, the main character has to battle himself, literally fight himself, and it's his inner demon's darkness, and your inner demons know you as well as you know your inner demons, so they will counter every punch, everything you throw at it, and vice versa,
Mm.
until it's a stalemate. And then the battle went on for like 10-15 minutes, and then he figured it out. He gave himself a big hug. And I was this was after meditating. I was out in the wilderness. There's this giant suspension bridge behind the Mall of Georgia that a lot of people don't even know about. It's one of my favorite places to go. And
Mhm.
I was walking on that bridge and I saw myself on the other side. And it was my anger, and a very hypervisual person. So I had this visualization of me battling it out with him as I'm crossing this bridge, and then remembering back to the episode of Naruto, and I gave it a hug, and it was like everything immediately dissipated. It all, like this rage, anger person just became a mirror of me. Like, okay, this is just me. Um,
I
Fast
accept
forward,
you.
yes, I
Yeah.
accept you, and you are me, but we are not this trauma. We are not this thing. Um,
Mm.
and so fast forward to 2 weeks ago, and I was telling Sarah, I was like, I kind of forgot about that, in the sense that I didn't realize I could use that with everything else.
Mm.
So I use Headspace for meditation, by the way. So if you don't think you can meditate, try Headspace, because it is meditation for people who are ADHD and high anxiety and all the things, and the videos and then the meditations themselves and their voices are just amazing. I've been doing it for several years now and I still suck at it, but I've gotten better because of this app. So I'm doing one on anxiety because I'm leaving the karate industry, which I have anxiety about and sadness about, because it's 27 years of my life and I love working with kids. It is my that fills up my love tank every day. The high fives, them attaining greatness and learning of their own greatness and what they can achieve, all those things. That's what fuels me. And knowing that, okay, But I also want to do something else for myself to grow in other areas and make a little more money at the same time, selfishly. So there's a lot of anxiety. And so in the meditation, the guided meditation, he's like, we don't want you to suppress your anxiety or have you know you're not trying to beat it up. You just got to change your relationship with anxiety.
Mm.
And that was just like, what? It was like a jinky moment, right? And I was like, oh. And again, like then immediately anxiety pops up in my brain in that meditation, and I give it a hug, and it dissipates. The anxiety went away immediately. I'm like, oh, I can do that every time. I was like, hey, me and you are the same person. This is made up. We're making up stories. This isn't real. I'm here for you. You are here because you need to feel seen. I see
Mhm.
you. We're here together. Hug, it goes away. And maybe a couple of days later, I was feeling, uh, lots of introspection all the time. You think about things in your past, and they'll bring up whatever memories and whatever feelings. And I had some sad stuff in my brain, and some not anger, but just regret. And it popped up, and it was during a meditation. And I was like, I can do the same thing. And I did. And it worked. And I cried. But it was tears of like, it was almost like realizing like I could forgive myself kind of moment. When people say that, they're like, it was that aha moment of like, I could forgive myself for these things or whatever, or I could forgive somebody else or whatever the case was. And it was like, it was that kind of like, I was like, okay. And I had a couple other things pop up over the next couple of days while I'm driving. Same visualization, same reaction. I'm like, oh, holy cow. Did I just hack my brain? Like, did I just figure out how to literally instantaneously remove, maybe not fully, but in that moment, I can
Mhm.
release from it where it doesn't overwhelm me or overtake me. And holy cow, it has been fantastic.
I have a term for that that I think you're really going to love because of your affinity for guns. So when I call that mind bullets. So when I am able to do what you do, and I can't always get there, but I get better and better and better at it. But, I call it like my mind bullets.
I love it.
Yeah. Feel free to use it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, whenever I did stuff like that and I was trying to combat it, for me, being a martial artist, it was always like like my inner self was like, whether it was an Optimus Prime or Wolverine, and I'm cutting through this whatever emotion or thing that's got me feeling, in my
Right.
feels. Um, but then when I like, and it was a constant battle, and it was like, okay, I cut through it, or I blew it up with this giant laser cannon, and then oh, it's back 5 minutes later.
Oh, yes.
And then when I gave it that hug, and something I said earlier was like, each one of those traumas and or things is me cosplaying or masked as something else. And so my anger was
Mm.
this giant Hulk, and it literally melted away. That facade, that costume melted away, and I'm looking at myself. Or this monster, you know, um, one of them was a monster, and it morphed back into me. So I'm looking at myself going, that's not you. This is you. Um,
Mm.
I don't know. It was just it's one of those
No,
crazy aha things.
yeah, no, that resonates with me. I do that with my kids. I'm sure Sarah knows I could talk to you for days. We have a lot in common. We also have a lot of little things. I know exactly what you mean around the ASD, because my wife and I have been foster parents, and we and a lot of our kids are on the spectrum, because we specialized in high needs kids, right? And and then we also realized late in life that there was a genetic component on my wife's side, as well. So, but I can totally tell just by the way they talk and they look, you know, like I can tell almost immediately, and my wife can too. And so I actually never talked to anyone else who could, you know, it was just something Jen and I would talk about, but we actually almost felt a little bad about, like we were going around thinking the world is autistic, you know. And then the other thing that I really, really loved that you said, Daniel, which I want to point out is, because I just think it's such a great message, and I forgot it, because Jenna and I used to train foster parents, and one of the first things we would say to them is, behavior is communication. And I can, you know, and that used to run in my head, you know, as a parent over and over and over again, but I kind of forgot it. And so hearing you today talk about that, it's just such an important thing, because, you know, up until our brain is developed, even later in life, but, you know, but definitely when your brain is undeveloped, you know, behavior is communication. It starts as a baby, you know, all the way up until, you know, we die. But, you know, so I'm so grateful for everything you shared today, and how
Thank you.
vulnerable you've
Can I share
been
with
and
you
how
an aha
strong
moment
you
I
are.
just had right now? So I was yesterday, speaking of like behaviors communication, we have this an ASD kid, little Indian boy, and he's kind of like, he's like your classic Rain Man, right? And he just starts talking, and it's not random, but it's random, right?
Right.
In context of a karate class. And he kept looking at me, and it took me several minutes to just kind of figure it out. But even then, I didn't figure it out till just now. But I was like, let me just help him. He kept saying, I'm a new student. He's been there for a year. And he kept grabbing it. I'm a new student. I was like, Mark, you're not a new student. You have a red uniform. You're a green belt. Like, you know, you're good at this stuff. You know what you're doing. And he kept saying, I'm a new student. And I stayed there and I helped him. And then after that, he was fine. And thinking back, especially after you just said that, like, you know, behaviors or communication, it was like, oh, he was communicating that he's struggling. And that was his way of saying it. And when I did help him, that immediately went away, and he went off to like doing his karate with his group and asking about stripes. But he was hell bent on that first 5 minutes of class, like, you know, where he didn't know to say, I need help, but his way of saying it was, I'm a new student. And I was like, oh, that's like a new achievement unlocked. All right, now I got to listen for that if he says it again.
Yeah, because he knows how you are extra supportive to the new students, right? And in that moment, he needed extra support, and so there was a connection in his head from observing you. The other reason why you are such an amazing observer is because of your, you know, childhood. So like the things that you witnessed at such a young age, you became a survivor, you know, so your observation and your ability to very quickly size up a situation is because of all that trauma, right? Like that's how you survived.
Yes.
You know, in your little Daniel brain, you know, when you were just growing up.
Yeah, I know. I'm a gazelle watching all the pieces of grass moves. Like, is that a lion? What's going on over there?
Yeah, is that a lion?
It is interesting. I have found that people that have had trauma early on in their life tend to see patterns. They tend, or there's some type of lesson that they don't know that they've learned, or some type of, I call it almost like a power. Like, you have a power. What is that power that you actually learned from that trauma? And are you going to use the light version of it or the shadow version of it? So it's, you know, are you going to use it for good to help people, or are you going to go towards the dark side of it and fight against it and not really learn how you can use it to your advantage for good, if that makes sense. But I find that everybody that has gone through trauma, no matter where it is in their life, there is a purpose. Like, you're meant to learn some type of lesson from whatever you're dealing with. It's figuring it out. And if you don't learn that pattern or don't learn that lesson, you're just going to repeat it. So, like, if you're still going through this shit, guess what? You haven't learned the lesson. That's why you're continuing to repeat it. So, what I also really love, and I want to point this out as you were talking, is that the reason that we called our show Bring Out Your Badass Self isn't because a badass is someone that is, like, I'm going to fuck you up type thing. It is a person that understands the trauma that they have gone through, and they have dealt with their shadow side to find their authentic self. So for us, the word badass is about authentic self and how it is that you can help yourself and help others. That to me is what a badass is. And that is what I consider you, is that not only have you utilized and learned something that really is badass from a karate perspective, that you're able to help people defend themselves, you're able to defend yourself, but you are also doing the other side of the house as well. You are also teaching people the empathy side. So like I heard you say, like, suck it up, and that's what guys tell themselves. So if anything, what I think is the most badass thing that you have done is understanding that you don't have to be that macho guy all the time, that you're embracing your heart, you're embracing the compassion, the empathy side of you. That is what truly makes you a badass.
Yeah. That amazing radical acceptance.
Exactly.
That you have for yourself and for others.
Yeah.
So badass.
So, Daniel, I could talk to you for forever, and I know that there are things that you said in there that Cate would be like, "Oh, let's dive into this, let's dive into that." But I also know that I want to be respectful of our audience as well, and so I just really appreciate you coming on. I also really appreciate when we're able to get men on this show. That are able to talk towards some of the things that they have dealt with in life, and how it is that they can balance and flow between the masculine and feminine side of themselves, and feel comfortable with both sides of those those sides of their personality. So
yeah, I'm so appreciative. You were just a shining example of what it means to be a badass, and to be vulnerable, yet strong. You're an amazing person.
You guys make me blush. I don't. I thank you, and thank you for having me on this show and allowing me to be on this platform with you guys. If I can share one more thing.
absolutely.
One of the things, as I say as a man, but like as a human, one of the things that I dove into a bunch was stoicism. And there's a guy named Ryan Holiday, and he's written many books about it. He's got some children's books on stoicism. Those are great pickups. So parents, look up Ryan Holiday. It'll get you to understand what stoicism really is, and not how people are like, oh, he looks stoic. It's like, it's not just a look, and it's not about pushing away emotions. It's about how to deal with it, and knowing that the only thing that I am truly in control of is what goes on inside my citadel, and I have zero control over everything outside of that, including my body. Cancer, XYZ, car accident, doesn't matter. How do I respond to this? And that's what makes me a good human being, through wisdom, justice, temperance, and I think there's a couple other pillars. But stoicism was a great deal and great help in forming my last 8 to 10 years of being a coach and a human being, and just kind of figuring out life to be a better person.
I love that.
Yeah, thank you.
So I want to share a couple of things. So one, you talked about domestic abuse earlier, and so I do want to pull this up that if anybody knows of anybody that's dealing with domestic abuse, I put in some text messages, some phone numbers. This will allow you to be able to call and find a shelter, to be able to get help. If you know of anybody, you can provide them this information because you may not know what to do, but you know someone in this situation. So you can call this number or you can text to be able to help someone that is dealing with domestic violence. So I wanted people to know that. And then I also want to talk about sort of the things that you're also doing and the way that people can connect with you. And so you are still at the dojo for a couple of weeks, but I know that that's something that's still really important to you. And so I want to share up that website as well, and maybe you can tell a little bit about the dojo.
Yeah, so the dojo, there I've known that family that owns it for several, almost 2 decades now. And they brought me in when I was when mine closed because of COVID, and it's been a fantastic. They're just a fantastic family. They figured out how to scale their business big and maintain the integrity of martial arts and
Hmm.
what we are trying to grow. Our motto there is build better kids, and I truly think we really do that. All the coaches are on the basically the same page or within a degree to two, of of that mission statement. Like we're building better kids, teaching them how to really, again, be autonomous for themselves and learn how great they can be and how to finish things and do what they say they're going to do, and just have accountability for themselves. The coaches, I've learned so much. As a coach, I only coached by myself, mostly throughout my career, and then being able to work alongside other coaches who have that same vision and push themselves to be better coaches as I push myself to be, like, we just grew from each other and we just got better and better. And so, like, it's a wonderful place to if your children need, whether it's the discipline or the confidence, and everything in between that. It is a terrific program.
That's great. So I'm going to pull up one comment. So everyone have a great weekend, badasses. And then I also want to also end with this. So how people can also get in touch with you. And so you're going down a different route in your life. You're exploring and figuring out some new things on where you're wanting your path to go. So if people want to connect with you, we have your Instagram. So I know that you're identifying some of the new passions or potential, things that you're looking to do. I do want to say one thing. I think an untapped potential is teaching karate instructors beyond karate, teaching them the empathy side of the house. Like I could see you, just so you know, being a motivational speaker,
Mhm.
talking to people, and then also doing training, throughout the United States and helping karate teachers go beyond where just beyond teaching just karate, because I've been, I did karate whenever I was younger, whenever I was in high school, and they didn't teach any of the stuff that I see you doing.
Right.
So I just wanted to maybe plant that seed, that who knows, as you continue on down your path.
Well, for the viewers out there, if there's anyone out there who can, because, like, I, my ability to organize things is terrible, but I got a million things up here, as you heard me spew.
Hmm.
I would love to do stuff like that, because I think it's important that educators don't just know how to teach science and math and whatever,
Yeah.
but they can do it in a way that can affect the entire classroom in a positive way, whether you're a school teacher or coach or karate teacher, whatever the case is. So yeah, I would, man, and that was, I wanted to be a motivational speaker and I want to do things. I don't know how to do that kind of stuff. I don't know how to, like, organize it. So any of you viewers out there, if you know how to put something like that together, I'll be the content and you just crack the whip and tell me what to do.
I love
All
it.
right. I love it. And so, and also it looks like Renee, she said, "What up, lamb?"
That's one of my black belts. I've known that girl since she's about to turn 21. I've known her since she was 4. She's one of my favorite human beings. Love you, Renee.
Aw.
Aw.
Awesome. So, well, thank you again for joining us. Thank you guys for your comments today. And Cate, do you want to end us for today? And then, real quick, Daniel, before Cate does that, any other final thoughts or things that you want to say?
I don't want to sound cliche, so no.
Well, thank you for being here. It was a very enlightening conversation today, and I hope that it really resonated with people that needed to hear it.
Thank you.
Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but I woke up, just before this started, and I feel amazing. I am so inspired by you, Mr. Lamb. Daniel, you are an amazing human. I'm so glad that you were able to experience what you experienced, accept yourself and all the love you've already spread. You're going to do amazing things, and we are here for it. So stay involved in our badass movement, and to all of our audience, let this amazing display of badassery inspire you as much as it has us today.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone.